water resources to be catalogued and a land policy implemented.
If the trends continue as far as denuding of forests, you have housing developments in the upper watersheds. I mean, we look at Cowley, that whole Cowley estate is in the upper Shock watershed. And I do not know that our planning has taken that into account. So the same way we see widespread flooding in the Castries Basin, in the future we may very well see increased flooding in the Shock Basin, because all of the upper watershed of Shock is taken up with housing, is gradually being taken up with housing.
If an integrated approach to development is ignored, and if efforts to implement a land policy are not implemented and enforced, St. Lucia may well be forced to consider alternative sources of water, including groundwater and the sea.
With respect to the utilization of groundwater and, let's say, desalination, one would resort to these options if there is a significant problem in terms of the availability of surface water. Exploration for groundwater could be very costly, as well as a desalination operation. So from an economic standpoint, it is more cost effective to utilize surface water.
There's broad scientific consensus that's growing that climate change and all that it encompasses is actually a very significant threat to human health, and especially so to children, who are the most vulnerable.
Climate change is likely to exacerbate the health impact. We may not be seeing new impacts, but we may be seeing exacerbation of existing health impacts.
The health of a country is closely related to the quantity and quality of its water supply. The effect of climate change on health in St. Lucia is yet to be comprehensively studied, but there is evidence to suggest it will bring major challenges and probably see the re-emergence of diseases such as malaria.
It is argued that with the increase in temperature, the amount of feeding that a mosquito may require would increase. Let's look at the rodent. Let's look at the mosquito. What can we do to reduce the population size of those vectors? By ensuring that our surroundings are clean.
Well, air pollution is one of the sort of indirect effects of climate change. Already we have seen unprecedented increases in the number of cases of asthma diagnosed worldwide, and St. Lucia is not certainly free from that. And that has to do, of course, with things like smog and the exhaust from cars and our factories.
The response to the challenges of climate change has to be initiated at the individual, national, regional, and international level.
If the policymakers and the technocrats and the decision makers adopt a no-regret strategy, it means that we would be in a position to accommodate any issue from or any impacts that climate change and climate variability may have on human health.
At the health sector level, I think our response will have to come from our community health teams, because I think prevention and health promotion is probably the most important aspect when you think of the health sector and how it addresses the problem of climate change.
Awareness of the impact of climate change is a critical issue to be addressed. A 2004 SEHI survey showed that only 11% of health practitioners were aware of the relationship between climate change and health.
So the research institutions like the University of West Indies and all of these institutions, there's need for collaboration and cooperation in terms of the research agenda, okay? But the research agenda must be pushed also by the health practitioners.
I think, first of all, knowledge, acquiring the necessary knowledge about what this is all about. Climate change is not just an academic discussion at the level of the first world countries, because the developing countries are going to be most stressed by the effects, both direct effects and indirect effects. So I think people have a responsibility to themselves, and I think probably the health sector should be leading the way to have people improve their knowledge on what this is all about and what the effects could mean for us down here.
Weather information is critical in the study of climate change. The information gathered at the main weather station at Huanora International Airport is used locally, regionally, and internationally in analyzing climatic conditions.
The data is transmitted on what we call the global telecommunications system. So it is sent to a center in Washington, and it's redistributed to all met stations all over the globe. Likewise, we have access to data from all the other weather stations.
Weather information is critical in every aspect of a country's development. More critically, it is utilized by the Disaster Preparedness Office in issuing early warnings of major weather systems.
We have a project coming on stream with Sidera and the University of the West Indies with support from the Japanese government to strengthen the early warning system at the Met Office for flooding. And of course, we have a program of the evacuation plans that tie in with the legislation so that when the warnings do come, people can move out of the floodplain.
St. Lucia, for its part, has undertaken a number of initiatives in response to the threats of climate change. One recent initiative was the conduct of a knowledge, attitude, and practice survey. Its primary objective was to assess public awareness of environmental issues such as global warming. The recommendations will be used to direct public awareness programs. In 1993, St. Lucia became party to a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and adopted a national climate change adaptation policy and plan, which will guide national action to address the effects of climate change. St. Lucia has also ratified the Kyoto Protocol and has developed a sustainable energy plan. St. Lucia is also promoting the adoption of renewable energy technology. St. Lucia has submitted its first national communication on climate change to the United Nations and commenced work on its second national communication in 2006. The island is also part of a number of regional initiatives which aim to get governments to make climate change issues a major part of their development plans and initiatives. St. Lucia also has a long-standing climate change committee that incorporates both private and public sectors. Climate change cannot be dealt with only through government initiatives. Individuals must face the fact that our planet is being destroyed through our own individual actions, and that it is only through a deliberate commitment that a difference can be made.
For us in St. Lucia, and for small islands on the whole, the key thing that we could do is adapt to what will likely happen. Paper is obtained from trees, so if we're able to reuse and recycle paper, we are using less trees and we are leaving the trees there to be able to act as a carbon sink.
One thing people need to start looking at is building what we'd call hurricane-resistant buildings, and it's not that expensive.
And children should really be educated. The schools have a responsibility that they should be beginning that sort of education and incorporating them into their curricula so that people become more aware of these environmental issues.